Shall we play a game?
I'm here to talk about a little movie called WarGames. It tends to be a film remembered for its crazy AI that tried to blow up the world or the computer that plays tic-tac-toe. That's not the only reason why it became a cult classic. It's the 1980s, computers started to become this fanciful thing. Regular people could start affording it, commercials would push and push. You could do anything on a computer and it can do things for you. Video games are coming back into the limelight. The early days of computer interconnectivity started. This led up to that growing worry of over-reliance on computers, loss of jobs, or taking people out of the equation. Mix that on top of the Cold War, you got the war game story. Computers can't make mistakes. Why not remove the human factor to things as nuclear attacks? A computer won't think of the people who will die when turning that key. This is the direction NORAD pursued in upgrading their military systems, giving control to a single computer named WOPR, War Operation Plan Response. It's been programmed in thousands of simulations and plans in order to predict or suggest counterattacks. All this goes bad when some high school kid gets into the system just to play games. David Lightman, the film's hero, is kind of a prick. Loves his video games and computers, but doesn't care to interact with people. He's smart, but only when he feels like it. He'll be late for class, insult teachers just to get out of there, and when he's failing, he'll just log into the school's computer and change his grades. If he's such a dick, why do we like him? That's the point of the film. It's a look at the pros and cons with people and technology, the pull and tug between the two viewpoints. Lightman fails because he wants to be lazy, take the easy way out. He's very much still trying to be a kid in high school, obey his parents, but does the bare minimum. If something goes wrong, who cares? He's not 18. The same goes towards the military and the new computer systems. Now, war games won't work like it did in the 80s to modern people. Half of the film is a showcase on what technology can do. Computers are old hat now, on top of the old tech being old, will bore people. It's more of a mystery drama rather than an action adventure. If you're expecting to see explosions, it's not that kind of film. You watch it for David's journey in changing his life and literally the world. So how does a 16-year-old nearly start World War III? He just wants to play the latest games and also tries to show off to a girl. A combination of failures lead up to this disaster. Jennifer is the second lead, a simplistic character, not horrible, but you don't buy the connection between David and Jennifer. What they do in the film, the biology teacher acts crummy towards her and Lightman by showing off their failed test of class. She liked that David insulted him, so she offered to drive him home. It's not really established if David knows Jennifer more than at this point. This is her first time going to his house and finding out about his computer stuff. She's used better in the second half of the film, but her purpose is to ask the questions that the audience are wondering about. He shows off that he can get into the school's computer, changing his F in bio to a C, and changes her F to an A. Two dumb kids doing stupid things. This is another area why people enjoy the film. I have problems with David and Jennifer's relationship, but the guy being stupid over a girl is what makes the movie fun. This is where Mathew Broderick does his magic as an actor. He's able to make a dick-type character charming, goofy, and scared as he goes through the film. WarGame does have to deal with jarring jumps between a teen drama and a world at the brink. This was before Back to the Future. They had no blueprint on what works. David loves video games and will do anything to get to play the latest one. So he wanted to find a way into a game company's systems by calling each phone number of the area on his computer. This is how he was able to connect to WOPR. WarGames does go out of its way in explaining how this type of screw-up happens. If you love a story that figures out cool ways in breaking down how we go from A to B, WarGames is very good at it. David doesn't know he's connecting to an active military computer system. He's thinking he's connecting to Protovision, but his curiosity gets the better of him. He starts learning about who designed this computer system since most of it was classified. He kept digging till he got the name Falcon, who, presumed dead, figures out the backdoor password built into WOPR, Joshua. Now, the WOPR doesn't know David isn't Falcon, so it just acts like normal, giving out a list of programmed games in the system. David thinks they're all just that, so he picks thermonuclear war, setting up a scenario between the Soviet Union and America. Joshua executes the order and sets up the simulation, which is presented on the screens at NORAD. No one knows that it's a simulation till it's too late. The responses seen by the US towards the fake union causes both sides to act. They realize it's not real way too late. While Joshua keeps the simulation on, NORAD of course figures out who got into the system and traced it back to David, where he promptly got arrested and sent to Cheyenne Mountain for questioning, where they check his hacking time on his computer as evidence of him working as a spy. This is another part of the film that didn't work. The writers do a good job in getting the story to naturally flow, but this part you can't buy. This is why I get confused on the whole Jennifer David thing. He breaks out of NORAD in several ways. He's able to record the touch tone of the door he's locked behind and gets out with a Tor. They go through all that detail. He even gets a payphone to work by grounding out the receiver end, which was a real thing on older phones, and I bet they changed them after this film came out. So he calls up Jennifer and asks her to buy him a plane ticket to the island Falcon is hidden on. Joshua gave him the clue that he wasn't dead. How does a teenager have money to just buy a ticket? I don't buy that. And Jennifer has to be really close to David to do that. But they just met. Then she meets up with him. If they had established they knew each other for years, it would have made more sense. But they wanted him to be totally awkward with people. It can't work. This part of the film is the meat and potatoes. Falcon left the military after his family was killed in a car crash. His baby boy, Joshua, is who the Whopper is named after. He gave up on life, seeing the military as pointless. Wars don't get you nowhere but total annihilation.
The whole point was to find a way to practice nuclear war without destroying ourselves.
It sounds like a basic wars are bad, don't do them, or computers are bad, don't use them. Not really. The story takes a more classic Star Trek approach. Falcon makes really good arguments, but David gives some of his own.
Nature knows when to give up, David.
I'm not giving up.
In convincing Falcon to not let the world burn, just because there's some horrible people out there. At the same time, David and Jennifer's speech shows how they've changed through the movie, from not caring about responsibilities to taking it.
You don't care about death because you're already dead. I know a lot about you. I know you weren't always like this. What was the last thing you cared about?
By doing everything in David's power to stop Joshua. So they return to NORAD and convince them to not launch counterattacks and wait it out. Of course, that wouldn't be a satisfying ending, so Joshua, to fulfill the simulation's orders, started hacking the launch codes for the ICBMs. The way the film ends was smart. Instead of hacking Joshua or destroying Joshua, David plays a game of tic-tac-toe. Or I should say Joshua plays a game of tic-tac-toe with itself, unable to beat itself in hundreds of games. Joshua learns that
The only winning move is not to play.
so they don't go down the usual hole of computer bad. This is where the sequel, yes, this had a horrible direct-to-video sequel, it forgot the message that this one gave. It wasn't just about fancy computers or running from the military. The sequel just took the beats and didn't care about the underlying story. The reason why there's some issues with the film is from them rewriting the story several times during production. They wanted the movie to be darker originally. The studio didn't like that. The hacking part of it was changed around a lot. It's why David has one scene with two nerdy friends that don't really do anything but explain what a backdoor is, on top of David and Jennifer's relationship feeling like two different sets of people. It doesn't totally disrupt the film, but if they had extra time on their hands, they probably would have fixed those issues. If you want to check out a small light film and are curious to how the 80s saw where tech was going, go for it. Don't go near the sequel. Thanks for checking out the video. Subscribe if you want to see more from me, and if you remember a movie or show that's long been forgotten, good or bad, leave it as a suggestion below. I'm always on the lookout for obscured stuff.